Gentlemen, welcome here to a brief conversation to explain the next stage in your assignments here in the Road to WarriorCon 3. Now, we have been in this conversation already many times looking at the following. We've discussed the topics of your fact map today. What are the facts today about where you're at in body, being, balance, and business? We then move that to another direction. Whereas we took you to a place of saying, well, what are the facts about where I want to be 12 months from now? The impossible game of the man I could become. And this has opened up the gap. Now, inside the gap, we have two important experiences that must occur. The gap opens up and allows for experience number one. Experience number one is the clearly identifiable first benchmark. Now, in a 12-month journey to becoming the man that you desire to be, the man that you have seen yourself the possibility to become, the impossible journey that you are about to experience, that journey and that drive requires you to understand that you're not going to get to the peak right away. We're going to have to hit our first base camp in order to get there. If we're going to climb Everest, we don't just climb it in one go. We actually have a process of travel and transportation, also climbing and hiking to base camp, camping out, acclimatizing ourselves to the new altitude, and then beginning to continue up the mountain. You and I, inside of what we are doing here in building a life that works and matters, we've slowed things down here into the fundamentals. We stopped in the game of getting clear about where you are. We stopped and got clear about the man you want to become. But now we must become clear about the man you must become in the next 12 weeks. See, your benchmark between now and WarriorCon 3, that deliverable, that game, that experience, that direction is going to be the first benchmarks that we're going to pursue and chase on the road to becoming that man. In order to pull that off, we're going to create a third set of fact maps. These fact maps are not about today and the target of who I'm going to be in my impossible game, but they're actually driven at the man that I must become in the next 12 weeks, that in by doing, I ultimately set myself up to become the man I see in the impossible fact map. So I'm going to draw this out for you a bit so that you can see what this looks like. Let me shrink myself down and give us the idea. So here we started with a fact map, and you completed this fact map across body, being, balance, and business. And this gave us the ability to check in with this idea and this location we call today. Now, over here, way up on the mountain, you created a target. And that target was a fact map that said, hey, in 12 months, this is the man that I will become. And along the way, we opened up then the gap that I just explained. And that gap itself is going to require us to do some work. The gap. The first thing we've got to check into is recognize that to get across the gap, we ultimately have a series of three benchmarks. Three benchmarks that will allow us to know we are on path. We have benchmark number 1, we have benchmark number 2, and we have benchmark number 3. And ultimately, the arrival of our target sitting over here at number 4. This is the impossible game you have already identified. The impossible game of the man that you could ultimately become 12 months from now. We're going to focus down, though, on creating inside of this space, inside of the space between where you are today and that first target that you are going to chase down, we call a benchmark. Now, a benchmark is exactly what it sounds like. A benchmark allows us to be clear about the following. It helps us identify that we are actually on the path. So if I am swimming in open water, one of the challenges of swimming in open water comes down to the following, which is I have to be able to not only swim, but I also have to be able to course correct my swimming. Meaning, when I'm in a pool I have lanes. The lane ropes go up and down. I look down on the bottom of the pool. I have blue tile. The blue dark tile actually gives me a straight direction on which I can follow. So in a pool, swimming is easy. Just like creating these fact maps are easy in a sense, meaning they're structured, there's ideas and concepts that are clearly identified in your fact maps of today, your fact maps of the man you will become 12 months from now, but now we've got to establish our fact maps along the way. See, inside of a pool, it's organized. But when you swim open water, guess what? There's no lane ropes. And there's no beautiful tile along the bottom of the ocean showing your lake exactly where to go. Which means when we swim in open water, we actually have to sight. So where a normal swim stroke, I may be here, and I'm pulling, and I'm breathing, and I'm pulling, and I'm breathing, and I'm breathing, and I'm pulling, bomb, bomb, and breathe, bomb, bomb. When I go open water, I have to do things differently. I have my face in the water, but there's no lane ropes. So I may be 1, 2, 3, breathe, and 1, 2, 3, sight. I actually pull my head up. My arm kicks, it pulls my head out of the water, and I look straight, and what I'm looking for are buoys. Big orange floating buoys during Ironman races, or I'm looking for landmarks, identifying places on the land, rocks, a target, a light, something. Boats look at this with a beacon or a lighthouse that's giving them a signal on shore where to go. So we've got to create for ourselves that same idea. We've got to open up for ourselves a benchmark or a buoy. So your assignment this week is simple. You're going to actually create and complete your first gap map. There are 4, if we come to our document, there are 4 specific gaps in between where you are and the target. We have gap number 1, which is going to be our focus. We don't know what gap number 2, gap number 3, or gap number 4 are going to be. We do not identify those yet. Why? Because at each one of these points along the way, the man you are becoming is a radically different human being. So the only chance that we have is not to get clear about where we're going to be in gap 2, 3, and 4. It's to get clear about where we are today, get clear about the commitment of the man we are committed to becoming in a year, and then to settle down into our first gap map and create the first benchmarks for ourselves across body, being, balance, and business that allow us to begin to move to base camp. We're not going to climb Everest in a day. You're not going to become that man in a day. But stacking 4 specific challenges built upon each other ultimately allow you to accomplish the impossible game. So your assignment, as for this week, is to begin into your first gap maps, your first actionable game of creating the targets for yourself that will end here at the end of this first challenge. 12 weeks from now, this will lead us into Warrior Con 3. And this experience is called the Road to Warrior Con, so it makes sense. Gentlemen, you have your assignment, you have your details, you know where to go. Now it's time to get after it. Gentlemen, dive into your gap maps now.